Hi everyone, my name is Amber and today I'm going to be talking about the best YA series that I've ever read. So I've been reading YA since I was a lot younger. I think I got into YA books around the time I started book blogging and booktubing, so about 2010. And I have read some really good series. Some have really stuck out to me, so I wanted to share them with you. A lot of these are older ones and aren't really spoken about on booktube anymore, so a lot of them are underrated, and I think even new booktubers or book bloggers or readers would really enjoy them, so I'd highly recommend them. The first one I want to talk about is the Poison Study series by Maria V. Snyder. Just the original trilogy I haven't really read into the expanded world, but the original trilogy was very good, particularly the first book, Poison Study. Poison Study is about a girl who is the taste tester for the royal family. She's basically there to make sure their food hasn't been poisoned. She was a prisoner, but she has been allowed to do this job, which the king basically thinks is a mercy. She kind of gets involved with the king's chief of security and a romance blossoms there. I don't think it's the best romance I've ever read. In fact, some parts of it I remember being quite annoyed about, but I don't think it's the worst thing I've read either. Basically, the main character gets involved with, as well as the chief of security, there are rebel plots. The main character starts to develop some magical powers that she didn't know about before. As usual, her life gets threatened, things happen, she has to go on a journey and discover more about herself. I think it's a really good series and I remember it being very popular back in the day. The first book came out in 2005, so it is a little bit dated, but I would highly recommend it. The next series I want to talk about is a 4-book series, and that is The Seven Realms. This series starts off with the Demon King. This is about a young boy called Han who is, or was, a thief, and he comes across an amulet that used to belong to the Demon King. This guy, the Demon King, it almost destroyed the entire continent about 1,000 years ago. There's also the point of view of a princess who gets involved with this guy. The princess's mother has plans for her, but she doesn't want to go along with them because she wants to be her own person and she's used to having a lot of freedom. And the two of them meet, things escalate, not between them necessarily, but things in the world escalate and then they have to try to survive. I've only read the first 3 books. I can't really say how this series ends and if it ends well because I still haven't read the 4th book, so I think I'm going to do a full series reread around summertime this year and see what I think of it. The thing that really stands out to me after all of these years, I can't remember when this book series came out, let me double check. It was first published in 2009, and the thing that really still stands out to me is the world building. I think it's a very well developed fantasy world and Cinda Chima did a fantastic job with it. And also, even though the books are actually quite long for YA books, I think the first one is over 500 pages and they only get longer from there. They fly by and it's really well written and the characters are just fantastic, so I would highly recommend reading these books. Then we have The Body Finder by Kimberley Derting. Again, this is a 4-book series kicking off with The Body Finder. The first book was released in 2010, just as I was getting into blogging. It's one of the first books that I picked up when I first started booktube and I would highly recommend picking it up. It's YA paranormal mystery and each book has a different mystery surrounding it, but basically they're all about this main character called Violet who can detect dead bodies. So if there's a dead body near her, she can kind of feel it and she can lead the police towards it. And it's not just human dead bodies either. It started out with birds and cats, but one day she does come across a human body and gets involved with a huge mystery. So in the first book, she has to find a murderer, and it's honestly a lot of fun. It's really well written. It's super fast paced. It's only a short book. Goodreads says it's only 320 pages, so it's easy to fly through. And each book in the series gets better, in my opinion. I don't think it ended particularly well just because my ship didn't get together. I'm still bitter about it, but in terms of the character development and the plot, I do think it's a really good series, and the concept is also kind of fun even though it's about dead bodies. I would then recommend Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn. You guys probably all know about my love for The City of Brass, but this is the book that kind of kicked off that love, and it's the YA watered down version. This book series is inspired by Middle Eastern fantasy. It's about jinn, like The City of Brass is, and the main character, Amie, is a gunslinger with perfect aim, and the book kicks off with her trying to get out of a backwater town called Dustwalk, and she bumps into a foreign guy called Jin and she ends up using him as an escape route. And as the series goes on, it gets bigger and bigger and the fantasy world becomes more and more developed, and as the title suggests, it's basically all about a rebellion, and it's a fantastic series. It made me cry. There are 3 books in it and in my opinion they do get better and better. They also get longer and longer, which is also good. It first came out in 2016 and it made a big splash, but I think everyone has kind of forgotten about it now, but please don't. It's a really, really good series, and if you'd rather read YA fantasy about jinn and Middle Eastern culture, then I would recommend reading this one rather than diving straight into The City of Brass, which is kind of a more epic story. Next we have a bit more of a modern series, and that is The Girl from Everywhere by Heidi Heilig. This is the first in a duology, and it's about time travel and pirates. So it's about a girl called Nyx who grew up on her father's ship. Her father is quite talented in that if he has a map for something, he can travel there. So say he had a map of London from 1999, that's just a random example, but say he had that, he could then travel to 1999 London using the River Thames and that map. And honestly, the concept of this one was fantastic. It really drew me in, and I love time travel stuff, and the way that the author, instead of going all sciencey, she went to the fantasy side of time travel, and it worked really, really well. So in this book, Nyx's father is obsessed with obtaining one particular map, and that is a map of Honolulu in 1868. Basically, he wants to find Nyx's long lost mother, who has vanished or died. I forgot to mention that the maps can also be fictional maps, so they could go to maps from fairy tales. So honestly, this concept really drew me in. I thought it was a fantastic idea, and I'm sad that it's only a duology because I feel like Heidi Heilig could really expand the world into a trilogy or even into separate different series, but I'm not sure the sales were that good, so it hasn't been expanded into a trilogy yet, but I really, really hope it does. This one came out in 2016 as well, and I think the sequel came out in 2017 or 2018, so it's a completed series for now, but it does have potential to be expanded. This next one is a really popular series, and I don't think you really need my recommendation, but it's definitely one of the better ones that I have read from YA, and that is Illuminae by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. So the reason I am choosing this one, even though I only gave Illuminae the first book 3 stars and the other 2 4 stars, is because of the format of it. I think the mixed media format really made this series better. I think it could have been a really average run-of-the-mill space opera about teenagers fighting off the government or a corporation if it hadn't been for the mixed media format, and I think having read Aurora Rising and not loved it, that's kind of cemented those feelings for me. I love the originality of the mixed media format and how they were actually Illuminae case files and how they were presenting these files to someone, and you later find out in the 3rd book who is they're presenting it to. So that is my reason for picking this one. It's not because I adore the story or anything, although it is very good. It's actually because I love the format, and I wish more books were told in this format as well, because I think you can get really creative with it. And if you do know of any other books apart from Night Film, which I do own, that tell a story in this way, then please let me know in the comments, because I would love to discover more of them. Finally, the 7th best YA series that I would pick to recommend to you is the Vampire Academy series by Richelle Mead. So these are super old. They came around at about the same time as Twilight did during the whole vampire craze. It's a 6-book series, so it's freaking huge. There's also a spin-off series about some related characters, which is also 6 books long, which is quite good, but Vampire Academy is superior. There's also a really awful movie that we don't talk about because it was the worst thing ever, but Vampire Academy, the book series, is an absolute classic. So it's about a girl called Rose who is a kind of half vampire. She is training at the Vampire Academy, and these half vampires have to protect the pure-blooded vampires, and she is training to become a guardian. There are also some evil vampires that they have to protect everyone from, so they're a threat, they're villains. While Rose is training, she also develops feelings for her super hot teacher, and this is kind of problematic, but I don't really care at this point. It's a paranormal romance. I mean, what would you expect? I got so invested from the 1st book, but as the series goes on, it gets even better. I think from the 3rd book, it starts to get really dark, and that's where I got really invested, because so much was going on and it expanded the world as a whole, and we learned a lot more about the Dhampir and about the evil vampires. I can't remember the name of them. I was really invested in this series, and I was so excited for the movie, and I'm so sad that it turned out the way it did, because honestly it was awful. But maybe eventually we'll get a TV series of it and it will make everything better again. But I would highly recommend this series. It definitely has its flaws, don't get me wrong. I mean, the student-teacher relationship was not great, but at the same time it's so much fun, and I got really attached to Rose and kind of to Lissa, her best friend. They're okay. I think Richelle Mead did a fantastic job with the series. I would highly recommend it. It's a shame that it's fallen off so many people's radars lately. I feel like a lot of people aren't reading it, maybe because the publishers have stopped promoting it, maybe because they've heard about the problematic elements, which is fair. It's fair. I think because I read it when I was younger, it's just really stuck with me. So those are the 7 best YA series that I can think up that I would recommend you read. I purposely picked some older series on purpose because I was younger when I read those. Some of them I read when I was only 17, 18, so I was definitely in the young adult age range, so those books were made for me, whereas I feel like any YA books nowadays that I read aren't necessarily for me because I'm no longer the target audience, so it's harder for me to pick some really good book series for you. But these are all ones that I adored when I was younger, and I think most of them will stand the test of time. Thank you so much for watching my video. Let me know what your favourite YA book series are in the comments below, and I'll speak to you all in the next one. Bye.